It started as a curiosity, the kind of odd coincidence that flickers through the haze of sleep without much weight, something to note in passing, maybe mention in a conversation, maybe forget. The first time he woke at 3:33 a.m., it felt like nothing more than an oddly neat time to find his eyes open. No sound had startled him, no dream lingered in his mind. He simply woke, calm, alert, staring at the ceiling in the blue-black dark. The room was still. The air was undisturbed. And his phone, when he reached for it on the nightstand, glowed with that precise symmetry, 3:33. He turned over and went back to sleep. The second night was harder to ignore. He woke in the same manner, no trigger, no nightmare, no noise, but with that same eerie clarity, that strange sense of being pulled gently to the surface of consciousness as if by an invisible thread. 3:33 again. This time, he sat up. Looked around the room. Waited. But nothing happened. The house was as silent as ever, no shadows moved, no floorboards creaked. Still, something felt different, not wrong, exactly, but misaligned, as if the edges of the room no longer met cleanly, as if everything had shifted half a degree off-center. By the fourth night, it was no longer a curiosity. He had started going to bed earlier, determined to break the pattern, but it didn't matter what time he closed his eyes, midnight, 10, even 8 o'clock after a long day. No matter what, he woke in that same moment of hushed stillness, the room soaked in vague blue light, the digital clock on his phone glowing that same triad of numbers, 3:33. But then, the first shift occurred, subtle, almost deniable. When he stood up, walked to the bathroom, and checked his phone again under a different light, the screen read 3:12. He paused, frowned, rubbed his eyes. Maybe he'd misread it the first time. Maybe the brightness had played tricks on his vision. He told himself it didn't matter. He went back to sleep. But it kept happening. Night after night, he'd jolt awake to see 3:33 on the screen. Always that number. And yet, as soon as he moved, stood, sat up, walked a few steps, the phone would show a different time. Never the same. Sometimes earlier. Sometimes later. But never 3:33 again. He tried to be scientific about it, propped a second clock on the nightstand, a cheap analog one with glow-in-the-dark hands, but it never matched the phone. On one night, the phone read 3:33, but the clock pointed to 2:41. On another, the phone still said 3:33, but the second hand on the analog face was frozen, refusing to tick. He recorded himself sleeping, hoping to catch the exact moment of waking. But every playback showed the same thing, no motion, no sudden noise, no cause, just stillness, then a cut, a skipped second, and he's sitting upright in bed, eyes already open, staring at something off camera. He checked for software glitches. Reset the phone. Bought a new one. It didn't matter. Every night, 3:33, perfect symmetry glowing in the dark, until he moved, and it slipped away again, replaced with something ordinary, something plausible, as though the device itself was trying to cover its tracks. Now he doesn't trust the time at all. And somewhere, beneath the rational explanations, he's begun to feel a deeper truth pushing its way up through the surface, that 3:33 isn't a time on the clock, but a place, a kind of spatial hour he enters without realizing, a boundaryless moment stitched into the lining of the night. And the only evidence that he's ever been there is the brief flicker of numbers on the screen before the world resets itself and pretends nothing happened. But something always happens. Even if he can't quite remember what. He no longer tried to fight the waking. By now it had become an inevitability, something woven into the rhythm of the night, not like insomnia or restlessness, but more like a summons, subtle, soundless, patient, and every time he opened his eyes, there it was again, that precise, perfectly balanced pattern on the screen, 3:33 glowing faint and blue, as if not a time but a password to something unseen, and although he sometimes tried not to look, pretending to be asleep, resisting the pull, he always gave in, not because he wanted to, but because something wanted him to, because that number wasn't just shown, it was shown to him, directly, deliberately, like a quiet acknowledgement from the dark. And what disturbed him more than the repetition, more than the number itself, was the consistency with which it was erased afterward, the way that as soon as he shifted, as soon as he sat up or blinked or moved his hand toward the phone, the clock would skip to some other time, like a guilty child dropping a toy the moment the door opened.